Detective Clara Benson raced against time as every clue led deeper into a web of secrets, while the mastermind who orchestrated the Riverton heist watched her every move from the shadows. The quiet town of Riverton was known for its tree-lined streets, small cafes, and the kind of familiarity where everyone knew everyone else's routines. Life moved at a predictable pace, and residents took comfort in the normalcy of their days. That calm was shattered one Tuesday morning when chaos erupted at the local First National Bank. Early customers had noticed unusual activity, and soon after, the bank manager discovered the shocking scene. The front doors had been forced open, security cameras destroyed, and inside, the vault had been tampered with. It wasn't just a robbery. It was a calculated invasion. The destruction of surveillance equipment suggested a level of premeditation that immediately alarmed law enforcement. Officers arrived quickly, trying to piece together what had happened, but the scene offered few clear answers. Muddy footprints led from the broken entrance to the vault, leaving investigators puzzled. They appeared to be from heavy work boots, but were smeared in ways that suggested careful placement, almost as if the perpetrator wanted them to be found yet not followed. A faint chemical odor lingered in the air, sharp and unsettling, hinting at substances used to disable alarms or tamper with security systems. On a desk near the vault, a small notebook filled with cryptic symbols and numbers sat neatly, untouched by the chaos. It was as though whoever left it behind wanted the police to notice it. But understanding its meaning was another challenge entirely. The combination of these elements painted a disturbing picture. This was not a random act of crime by an opportunistic thief. It was the work of someone who understood the inner workings of the bank, someone who had taken the time to plan each move meticulously. As news of the robbery spread, the townspeople gathered in small clusters outside the bank, whispering theories and pointing fingers. Rumors began to circulate about who could have committed such a precise and audacious act. Some suspected outsiders, others suggested someone from within the bank itself. The fear was palpable, a sense of unease threading through a community that had always prided itself on safety and predictability. The FBI's arrival the following day confirmed what many feared. This was a case of significant complexity, possibly part of a larger scheme. Their experts began analyzing the footprints, chemical traces, and the cryptic notebook, seeking patterns invisible to the naked eye. Riverton, which had always felt like a secure bubble, now seemed vulnerable, each street and corner a potential site of secrets waiting to be uncovered. As investigators started to piece together the timeline and reconstruct the movements leading up to the robbery, it became clear that the criminals had studied the town, its routines, and its people in a way that was both unnerving and impressive. The calm of the town had been irrevocably broken, replaced with tension, suspicion, and a growing awareness that this crime was only the beginning of a much larger, more dangerous puzzle. Detective Clara Benson arrived in Riverton early the next morning, her reputation preceding her. Known for her methodical approach and keen eye for details, she immediately began examining the crime scene with a meticulous focus that left other officers in awe. The notebook with cryptic symbols was her first priority. At first glance, the markings seemed meaningless, random numbers, letters, and abstract shapes, but Clara's experience told her otherwise. Each symbol corresponded to specific locations and times, almost like a coded map. She spent hours cross-referencing them with bank security schedules, delivery routes, and local events, looking for a pattern. Meanwhile, chemical analysis revealed traces of industrial solvents used to disable security sensors. These weren't common chemicals. They required specialized knowledge to handle safely, indicating the criminals had expertise beyond ordinary burglary. Clara realized that understanding the criminals' motives would be as important as tracking their movements. As the investigation unfolded, the police department began receiving anonymous emails. Each message contained partial hints, strange riddles, or distorted images related to the bank, but never enough to directly implicate anyone. The tone of the emails was taunting, calculated to frustrate investigators while giving the sender the illusion of control. Clara noticed that the timing of the emails coincided with moments when investigators discovered significant clues, almost as if the criminals were observing their every move. The presence of an unmarked van near the bank on multiple nights added another layer of mystery. The vehicle had no license plate, and the make and model were deliberately altered to avoid detection. Surveillance footage revealed the van parked at odd hours, its occupants never visible, yet its mere presence suggested the perpetrators had been watching the bank for weeks, possibly months. Clara's team began reconstructing the sequence of events leading up to the robbery. Witness reports indicated subtle signs of preparation in the neighborhood, unfamiliar people surveying streets, packages being delivered and removed quickly, and unusual activity near the outskirts of town. At the same time, investigators traced the delivery of chemicals to suppliers who had noticed bulk purchases under false names. Every lead, every small detail pointed toward a highly organized operation. Clara started creating profiles for possible suspects, considering anyone with access to security systems, knowledge of the town's daily routines, and technical expertise. The complexity of the crime forced the team to work around the clock. Patterns in the notebook hinted at other potential targets, raising concerns that the bank robbery might be only the first in a series of orchestrated crimes. Clara felt the pressure keenly. Every decision had consequences, and the town was on edge. Rumors in the community grew, with residents speculating about secret accomplices or insider betrayal. The tension was palpable, and the detectives understood that one wrong move could tip the criminals off. By the end of the week, Clara had mapped several likely scenarios for the criminals' next steps. Each lead pointed to the unsettling possibility that the robbery was more than a financial crime. It was part of a deliberate psychological strategy designed to manipulate, intimidate, and test the limits of law enforcement. The realization hit that solving this case would require not just following the evidence, but anticipating the actions of a mind as meticulous and dangerous as the criminals themselves. The investigation had transformed into a high-stakes puzzle, and Riverton, once a quiet town, now felt like the center of a deadly, calculated game. The breakthrough came unexpectedly in a place no one had considered significant. A small, unassuming mechanics shop on the outskirts of Riverton. The owner, a middle-aged man named Harold, had noticed unusual behavior over the past weeks. A man had arrived in a van, claiming it needed urgent repairs, yet provided a fake identity and a convoluted story about why he couldn't leave the vehicle for long. Harold remembered the van because of the intricate modifications. It had reinforced panels, hidden compartments, and tampered locks that suggested professional work. The man paid in cash and disappeared, leaving Harold uneasy. When Clara and her team visited the shop, Harold explained everything in detail, providing descriptions and receipts that, while seemingly trivial, became vital pieces of the puzzle. Clara examined the van and realized the extent of the tampering. The vehicle had been modified to allow quick escape, storage of sensitive equipment, and even surveillance of the surrounding area without detection. Every alteration required advanced knowledge, suggesting that the criminals were not only skilled but also methodical planners. The van's identification numbers had been altered, the license plates switched multiple times, and any electronic traces were wiped. Investigators struggled to trace the vehicle's origins, encountering dead ends at every step. The realization hit Clara that the criminals had considered every angle, anticipating law enforcement moves and erasing almost all traces of their presence. As the team dug deeper into the notebook, patterns emerged. The cryptic symbols corresponded not just to locations, but to sequences of events. Clara decoded several entries, revealing that the bank robbery had been a test, part of a broader operation. Other targets were mapped out, coinciding with town events and municipal schedules. The criminals had planned distractions, timed precisely to ensure minimal interference from authorities. It became clear that the bank heist was not an isolated incident. It was the opening move in a complex, multi-layered scheme. The investigation took a darker turn when digital forensics revealed fragments of encrypted files linked to the van. These files contained detailed plans for identity theft, counterfeit documents, and surveillance data on local residents. Someone had spent weeks, perhaps months, gathering information, creating a network of knowledge that gave them significant leverage over the town. Clara realized that catching the criminals required more than tracking physical movements. It demanded understanding their mindset, predicting their next moves, and deciphering their coded communications. Meanwhile, the community's anxiety grew. Residents noticed the sudden scrutiny, the investigators questioning familiar faces, and the sense that the crime was more than just a robbery. Clara knew that public pressure could lead to mistakes, and she worked tirelessly to manage the flow of information while keeping the investigation on track. Every new discovery revealed more about the criminals' meticulous planning, their adaptability, and their ability to manipulate the environment around them. The pressure mounted, but so did Clara's determination. She recognized that the van and the notebook were keys not just to solving the robbery, but to unraveling a web of deception, intelligence, and calculated criminal intent. By the end of the third week, the team had mapped significant portions of the criminals' operation, though the full scope remained elusive. The breakthrough at the mechanic shop had provided the first concrete lead, but it also revealed the chilling reality. The criminals were far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. Every step forward seemed to uncover new layers of planning, new strategies, and new threats. Riverton was no longer just a quiet town. It had become the center of a dangerous game, and Clara understood that the next moves would determine not only the outcome of the investigation but the safety of everyone in the town. Clara and her team began uncovering an elaborate network of hidden cameras and surveillance devices scattered throughout Riverton. At first, the discovery seemed minor, small, inconspicuous devices tucked into streetlights, shop fronts, and alley corners. But as the team mapped their locations, a disturbing picture emerged. The criminals had been watching not just the bank, but the movements of law enforcement, emergency services, and even ordinary townspeople. Every patrol route, every scheduled check, and every casual investigation was being monitored. It was clear that the perpetrators had anticipated every possible reaction, giving them a dangerous advantage. The level of planning suggested weeks, if not months, of preparation, with each device carefully placed to avoid detection while providing maximum coverage of critical areas. While examining one of the storage locations associated with the van, investigators uncovered far more than stolen money. Inside, they found an assortment of high-tech equipment, laptops with encrypted files, counterfeit documents, identity theft kits, and communication devices designed to evade standard surveillance. The team also discovered detailed dossiers on local residents, including bank employees, business owners, and government officials. It became chillingly apparent that the criminals had mapped the town thoroughly, understanding routines, vulnerabilities, and personal habits. Every detail of their operation revealed layers of deception, demonstrating not just technical skill, but a deep understanding of human psychology. The bank robbery had been only one piece of a far larger puzzle. Clara recognized that this was no ordinary investigation. The criminals weren't merely interested in financial gain, they were engaged in a calculated psychological campaign, testing the limits of law enforcement and manipulating the town's sense of safety. The surveillance footage they captured showed careful timing, observation of police movements, and the ability to predict law enforcement strategies. The criminals seemed to be challenging the investigators at every turn, leaving clues that taunted without giving away their identity. The team realized that anticipating the next move required understanding the mindset behind the planning. As the investigation progressed, the team began connecting the dots between the van, the hidden cameras, and the encrypted files. Each discovery revealed another layer of sophistication. The criminals had contingency plans for every eventuality, ensuring that even if one part of their operation were compromised, the rest could continue without interruption. Clara's attention to detail allowed the team to uncover these layers, but the psychological strain was intense. The pressure to stay ahead of a mind so meticulous was unrelenting, and the town's fear only amplified the stakes. Toward the end of the fourth week, the team focused on the digital files. Decrypting them required advanced cybersecurity skills, and what they found was alarming. Plans for additional crimes that would exploit weaknesses in the town's infrastructure, target influential residents, and create diversions for even larger operations. The scope of the criminal enterprise was staggering, revealing motives that were strategic, personal, and calculated to terrorize. Clara understood that the next breakthrough would need to combine physical investigation with careful psychological profiling. The criminals' intricate network of surveillance, deception, and preparation had turned the investigation into a high-stakes game. Every day that passed brought new evidence, but also the looming possibility that the perpetrators were planning their next move, watching and waiting with precision. Riverton, once a quiet town, had become the epicenter of a dangerous, unfolding drama, and Clara knew that the resolution would demand every ounce of skill, patience, and intuition she possessed. The final breakthrough came unexpectedly, triggered by an anonymous tip that led investigators to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Riverton. The building was nondescript, hidden behind overgrown weeds and a chain-link fence, but the information pointed directly to it. Clara and her team approached cautiously, aware that this could be a trap. Inside, the warehouse was a stark contrast to its exterior. Rows of shelving held boxes of counterfeit documents, digital storage devices, and equipment designed for identity theft and surveillance. The walls were lined with monitors, some displaying live feeds from cameras previously unknown to law enforcement. The criminals had clearly been preparing for their next operation, and the realization that they had been observing the investigation all along sent a chill through the team. Clara examined the materials carefully. Encrypted files on the computers revealed the criminals' meticulous planning and attention to detail. Every previous crime had been part of a larger strategy, and the warehouse contained evidence that confirmed the breadth and scale of their operation. Each piece of equipment, every document, and every digital footprint pointed to a single, surprising conclusion. The mastermind was someone with intimate knowledge of the town and its institutions. Clara pieced together the identities of the individuals involved, discovering that the leader had once worked as a security consultant for the very bank that had been robbed. They had used insider knowledge to exploit vulnerabilities, manipulate surveillance systems, and orchestrate an elaborate chain of events that had kept law enforcement guessing at every step. The arrest operation was carefully coordinated. Clara's team moved with precision, aware that the criminals were intelligent, prepared, and dangerous. When the suspects were apprehended, the extent of their planning became fully apparent. The notebooks, symbols, and van modifications were all part of a sophisticated strategy to mislead, manipulate, and challenge law enforcement while securing the criminals' objectives. In addition to financial gain, the operation had an element of psychological control, testing the limits of the town, exploiting routines, and observing reactions. Riverton had unknowingly become a testing ground for a calculated, methodical criminal mind. As the investigation concluded, the town began to breathe again, though the sense of relief was tempered by the knowledge of how close they had come to further crimes. Clara reflected on the intricacy of the operation, the criminals' ability to anticipate human behavior, and the scale of preparation that had gone unnoticed for so long. Every step of the investigation, from the first broken doors at the bank to the discovery of the hidden surveillance network, highlighted the challenges of tracking a mind that was always thinking several steps ahead. The case became a textbook example of criminal ingenuity, meticulous planning, and the importance of patience and observation in law enforcement. In the weeks following the arrests, Riverton slowly returned to normal. Residents resumed their routines, shops reopened, and the quiet streets regained a sense of safety. Yet the memory of the complex investigation lingered, a reminder that beneath even the most ordinary towns, extraordinary danger can sometimes lurk. Clara's efforts had unraveled a web of deception that no one could have anticipated, and the case would be remembered not just for the crimes themselves, but for the careful, calculated intelligence that lay behind them. The story of Riverton's ordeal served as a powerful lesson. Vigilance, persistence, and insight are often the only defenses against those who operate in shadows, planning with patience and precision. The town was safe, but the tale of the complex crime investigation would echo for years, a testament to human cunning and the tireless work of those determined to uphold justice.